Hey guys, it's Samson Biggz, and it's time to watch the news. Let's see what's popping.
Tonight, the search for answers after a deadly shooting rampage in North Carolina. A 15-year-old suspect in custody after the mass shooting that left 5 people dead in Raleigh. What we're learning about the victims, among them an off-duty police officer and a 16-year-old boy. What was the shooter's motive? Also tonight, the new move in the battle over documents seized at Mar-a-Lago. What the DOJ is asking an appeals court to do regarding the special master. And Donald Trump sending a 14-page letter to the January 6th committee after it voted to subpoena him. What it says and the video from the day of the attack, Nancy Pelosi saying she wanted to punch Mr. Trump out. Our NBC News exclusive with Dr. Mehmet Oz, GOP Senate candidate in Pennsylvania. Does he stand by his campaign's attacks on the health of his Democratic rival John Fetterman? Does he support a federal ban on abortion? And his anti-crime message. The holiday shopping season, why it's off to an early start, where to get big bargains right now. It's America's fastest growing sport with fans like Tom Brady and LeBron James. How pickleball is going pro.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening. We are going to begin with the tragic and frightening story that was breaking in North Carolina as we came on the air here last night. We now know 5 people died, allegedly at the hands of a teenage shooter who held a Raleigh neighborhood in fear, forcing residents to barricade themselves inside their homes. North Carolina's governor calling...
Man, that's crazy stuff right there, man. What's going on? That you have to know that is video games right there. I know people don't think video games affects people, but I mean, if a 15-year-old is out shooting people, that is definitely video games right there.
Calling it the nightmare of every community. Authorities say the alleged shooter left a 2-mile trail of victims and crime scenes behind him. Tonight, the 15-year-old suspect is being held and is in critical condition after a long standoff with police. The dead include an off-duty police officer and range in age from 16 to 52. 2 other people were injured, and eyewitnesses are now describing to us their own harrowing encounters with the accused shooter. Blaine Alexander is in Raleigh and has late details.
The crime scene stretched more than 2 miles from this quiet Raleigh neighborhood to a nearby walking path, a literal trail of terror, all left by one gunman who police say is just 15 years old.
We have an officer down.
The first shots came just after 5 p.m. as neighborhood kids were getting off the school bus. Naisha Royal was at home and heard screams outside.
A neighbor's kids were knocking, banging on the door. I'm telling her, open the door, something's going on. And you hear the kids saying, he has a gun, he has a gun, there's a gun.
And when you opened the door, what did you see?
Chaos. Chaos.
She also saw the gunman and frantically started pulling neighbors and school children into her house.
If you could have seen the fear in their eyes, the little girl was like, he pointed the gun at me. And they're kids. They're kids.
For more than 4 hours, police combed the area, bringing dogs and helicopters and telling residents to stay inside. Finally, they say they found the gunman hiding nearby. He was taken into custody and to the hospital in critical condition.
There are several families in our community waking up this morning without their loved ones.
Among those killed, according to officials, 29-year-old Gabriel Torres, an off-duty police officer headed to work. 16-year-old James Roger Thompson, a high school junior. Sue Karnitz, who was out for a run. Her husband says that was her biggest passion outside of their 3 boys. Nicole Connors, a caregiver at heart, dedicated to her husband and their dog, Sammy. And 35-year-old Mary Marshall, set to get married in just 2 weeks.
Blaine, none of it makes sense if police said anything about a possible motive.
Unfortunately, not yet, Lester. In fact, police are not saying what led up to that shooting, only that the entire thing is still under investigation. But we are learning more about charges. Tonight, the DA's office confirms that even though the suspect is only 15 years old, he will be charged as an adult. Lester.
Blaine Alexander in Raleigh tonight. Thank you.
That's crazy, man. Freaking. I've been to Raleigh, man. I ran in a track meet up at Chapel Hill, and we had to go through Raleigh to get there. And it's just, what can you do? what can you do about these shootings? Honestly, it's like you can't really do anything about it anymore, right? It's just gun culture is so like instilled in America. That's the first thing. You know, as long as there is half of the population, it's like, we want guns, we want guns, we want guns, you know. And then also you got just the criminality, they have guns, you know. And so as long as the criminals got guns, then law-abiding citizens are going to want to have guns. Then kids are going to find guns. There's just so many guns. There's like, it's just, you can't really do anything about it but shake your head and, you know. And it's just our culture. American culture is just, you know, if you get moody or pissy or, you know, you just pull out your gun, you know. It's so sad, man. So.
This evening, former President Trump's response after the January 6th committee voted to subpoena him, as new video from inside the Capitol on that day shows the fear and frustration of congressional leaders. Kelly O'Donnell has late details.
Former President Trump used 14 pages to vent his anger, disappointment, and complaint at the January 6th committee for not investigating his claims of election fraud rejected by courts. With crowd photos, he embraced rioters as hardworking American patriots, but no answer on what.
Trump is such a goon, man. and the fact that people freaking like support him and follow him and praise him, it's beyond me, man. I mean, when I was young, you know, and you know, I thought Trump was cool because he was rich. That was the only thing that, you know, I knew about him. So I knew he had a TV show and all this other stuff, you know. So when you're young and you're like, I want to be rich. So you see him and you're like, oh, he's rich and he must be cool. Turns out, man, he's just a straight up asshole. And it's the fact that so many people support him, just this country's full of assholes.
Whether he will comply with a subpoena to testify.
You know the Capitol has been totally overrun. Answer my question.
NBC News obtained 42 minutes of documentary footage shot by Speaker Pelosi's daughter. CNN obtained additional clips that show congressional leaders of both parties
getting there in one hell of a hurry, you understand?
Scrambling to get guard troops sent to the Capitol.
We need them there now, whoever you got.
In another exchange,
all right, Mr. Vice President?
Speaker Pelosi reaches Mike Pence.
Okay, I worry about you being in that Capitol room. Don't let anybody know where you are.
From concern to fury at President Trump.
I'm going to punch him out. I'm going to go to jail. I'm going to be happy.
And Kelly O'Donnell joining us now. And there are also new legal developments.
I wish she would punch him out. I would love to see that. I would like to hold his arms while Nancy Pelosi punches Donald Trump in the face. In fact, everybody gets a free shot at Donald Trump. That would be great. Just everybody gets to punch him. That would be perfect. Let's just have a line across the country of people that get to punch Donald Trump in the face.
Developments, Kelly, in the search of the former president's Mar-a-Lago estate.
That's right. The Department of Justice is asking an appeals court in the Mar-a-Lago documents case to end the use of an independent reviewer of those materials seized that Mr. Trump had requested. Lester?
Kelly, thank you. Just 25 days before the midterms, tonight we speak exclusively with Dr. Mehmet Oz, the Republican facing off against Democrat John Fetterman in that critical Pennsylvania Senate race. Our Dasha Burns pressing Dr. Oz on crime and his campaign's attacks on Fetterman's health.
Pennsylvania Republican Senate candidate and celebrity Dr. Mehmet Oz has focused much of his campaign on crime and blasting Democrat John Fetterman on his votes as the head of the state's Board of Pardons.
He says he believes in second chances. The former president, with his First Step Act, also was about giving second chances to prisoners who deserve it. Why don't prisoners who prove good behavior, who are model prisoners, why don't they deserve second chances?
The First Step Act had nothing to do with convicted murderers being released from prison, especially after they've been sentenced to life in prison. It's a whole different game. So when John Fetterman is asked if you could wave a magic wand, what's the one thing you would do? The one thing. And he says, well, I'd get rid of life in prison.
Well, I asked him that. He actually said it would be codifying Roe versus Wade and abolishing the filibuster.
Yeah, well, he's answered it the way I just described it in the past as well. And too often, John Fetterman seems to pay more attention to the feelings of the criminals than the innocent who were hurt.
We also asked about his campaign's attacks on Fetterman's health. He was off the campaign trail for months after suffering a stroke.
One of your campaign staffers said that John Fetterman wouldn't have had a stroke if he had, quote, ever eaten a vegetable in his life. You're a doctor. You're a heart doctor. You, of all people, understand what John Fetterman is going through better than most. Why would you allow your campaign to mock him like that?
I have tremendous compassion for what John Fetterman's going through. I mean, not only do I, as a doctor, appreciate the challenges, but I know his specific ailment because it's a specialty area of mine.
But would you ever talk to your patients like this?
No.
He criticizes Fetterman for not releasing his medical records, while Fetterman accuses Dr. Oz of not being transparent on abortion rights. This is what he told us this week.
Dr. Oz likes to make fun of me that I might miss a word, but, he's missed, 2 words, and that is a yes or no on the national abortion ban.
So we asked him about Republican Senator Lindsey Graham's bill that would ban abortions after 15 weeks.
If you win, you're going to be a colleague of his. You're going to have to vote on bills like this. So can you tell us right now yes or no on that bill?
I'm giving you a bigger answer than yes or no. I'm telling you I don't want any federal rules limiting what states do with abortion. It should be up to the states.
Lester, there was more we wanted to...
What a douchebag. Dr. Oz is going down. John Fetterman, is that his name, Fetterman? Fetterman all the way. Let's get it, guys. If you live in Pennsylvania and you watch this, vote for Fetterman.
Discuss. We had asked for the same amount of time Fetterman gave us, about 30 minutes, but the campaign said they had time constraints, so we only spoke for about half that time. Lester?
Dasha Burns, thank you. Now to the migrant crisis. The Biden administration announcing this week it will start expelling more Venezuelan migrants to Mexico. It comes as President Biden is under pressure to do more after a record number of illegal border crossings. Gabe Gutierrez reports now from Yuma, Arizona.
Each night, they rush to turn themselves in, group after group of asylum seekers crossing the Arizona border.
It's beautiful coming to a free country.
Giselle Palacio and her 3-year-old daughter came here from Cuba. Why did you come?
I want to be free. I want to buy some food, decent food for my girl, and work.
Dude, I live in Arizona, so I can speak on this. Yes, come, immigrants, come, everybody, do whatever you can, get here. If you have to sneak over here, if you have to, whatever it takes, come on over. We want you. I want you. Yeah, there's a lot of Republicans that are anti-immigration, but who cares? Who cares what the Republicans want? Come. If you're watching this and you live outside the United States and you want to migrate here, I invite you to migrate here because why not? If you live in a third world country or if you just live in a country where you don't like it, hey, come here. Come on, baby. The more migrants, the better. I love you guys.
I'm there for progress. American dream,
This area alone is seeing hundreds of asylum seekers each night. And in just the last year, there have been more than 300,000 illegal border crossings in the area around Yuma. That's 3 times the city's entire population of nearly 100,000. It's an all-time record.
Is that sustainable? It's not sustainable.
Douglas Nichols is Yuma's mayor.
I definitely do consider this a crisis. It's a situation where numbers are multiple times higher than anywhere else in history.
The only hospital here estimates that over 6 months, it's doled out $20 million in uncompensated medical care to migrants.
We have to.
Oh, the hospitals have dealt out $20 million. You know how much those hospitals are raping us? So whatever, dude. I gotta bleep that out. Can't use the R word. But hospitals and the medical industry here in the United States have been stealing from everybody. So don't give me that crap with your little freaking
to stop that border flow. If you're going to have the borders open like they are, then there has to be a payment source for these individuals.
Officials here say they're not getting enough help from the federal government. Arizona's governor has spent $6 million to bring in these shipping containers to close gaps in the border fence. The state is also spending $83,000 per bus to send migrants to Washington, D.C.
Politics play a big role.
But aid volunteers like Fernando Quiroz say there is no chaos. Just anti-immigrant rhetoric in an election year.
None of these individuals are overwhelming, overrunning the city.
Still, he views it as a humanitarian crisis.
We spent like 25 days coming here.
One that brought a desperate Giselle Palacio and her family to U.S. soil in search of a dream, enduring a nightmare.
Local officials say they expect border crossings here to rise again over the next few months as temperatures cool. Lester?
Okay, Gutierrez, thanks.
Again, I say, hey, if you want to come to the United States and want to come to Arizona, come on, I invite you. I invite you. Do whatever it takes, you know. If you have to come cross the border in the middle of the night when nobody's watching, hey, do it. Do it. You know, it's better.
Tonight, Russian President Vladimir Putin addressing the situation in Ukraine, while a key Putin ally, the president of neighboring Belarus, is also speaking out. Keir Simmons spoke with him exclusively.
Tonight, after bombarding Ukraine, Russian President Vladimir Putin suggesting he could cause more destruction. There's no need for massive strikes, he said, at least for now. As for the future, we'll see.
Mr. President.
We met a key Kremlin ally, Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko, who insisted his crews also film our exclusive interview, but with no restrictions on questions.
Do you think President Putin would use a nuclear weapon?
If you put a person or a country in a corner, there is only one way out from there, to move forward. As far as the subtext of your question is concerned, never. Putin and the leadership of Russia never set the goal of using a nuclear weapon in Ukraine.
How would you describe President Putin's state of mind right now?
It's not what you think in the West and the United States. He's an absolutely adequate, healthy, athletic man.
President Lukashenko was supported by President Putin after a widely discredited election in 2020. And this week, Lukashenko supported Russia at the UN.
Civilians being targeted, women and children. How can Belarus justify voting against the UN resolution to condemn the Russian offensive?
You know, there is an information war going on. The Ukrainians talk about mass graves, and the Russians similarly reveal mass crimes from the Ukrainian side.
And tonight, President Putin insisting his actions in Ukraine are correct and timely, though calling the situation unpleasant. Lester?
Yeah, with the Ukraine, you know what? I'm of the opinion that I'm 100% for the Ukraine, and I think we should continue to do whatever we can. If we send them weapons, we send them money. All these right-wing babies that are like, oh, we send them too much money. What about here? They don't care about here. They just want something to argue about, okay? So whatever. If we got money to send to Ukraine, let's just send it. If we get weapons to send to Ukraine, let's send it. Russia, it's 2022. There's no need to be invading your neighbors. And this is exactly what Russia did. Putin is, he's a dictator is basically what he is. And he's just, causing too much problems in the world, and he needs to be stopped. There's 100% he needs to be stopped. He needs to take his Russian troops, bring them home, and he needs to just stop this. But he's not going to stop it, so we got to continue to do what we got to do. You know what I'm saying? Freedom for Ukraine.
All right, Keir, thank you. In 60 seconds, holiday sales already kicking off as spending cools down. How stores are getting you to buy now.
Treat yourself to something spectacular. Get away to a place that's...
Spending by Americans remained flat in September, which is bad news for retailers, but it may be good news for holiday shoppers already being lured with deep discounts. So is Black Friday a thing of the past? Here's Miguel Almaguer with tonight's...
discounts my ass. All they're doing is bringing the price back to what it was before COVID. That's all they're doing.
Price you pay.
This is Black Friday now.
At some of the nation's biggest retailers,
Black Friday deals for days.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas 2 weeks before Halloween. To jumpstart consumer spending that's falling flat as inflation hits a 40-year high, big box stores like Best Buy, Target, and Walmart are tonight trying to unload excess inventory, kicking off holiday sales earlier this year.
Black Friday has already started because the sales have begun, the discounts have already been launched.
Some of the deepest discounts could come on electronics, appliances, and computers. Deals at 50, 60, and even 70% off by the real Black Friday may be the price retailers have to pay to get consumers to buy.
If there's a deal, of course, I'm just going to swipe that up.
As families tighten budgets amid high interest rates, steep gas prices, and rising rents, more than 40% of Americans say they aren't earning enough to cover the cost of holiday gifts this year.
Basically, retailers know that consumers are really stressed out financially. By spreading out those sales over a multi-week, multi-month period, it makes it easier for consumers to keep spending.
The best advice, say experts, do your holiday shopping now and wait for the perfect sale. Last year, 50% of shoppers did their holiday shopping before Thanksgiving. Lester?
All right, Miguel, thanks. Up next.
Yeah, inflation is crazy. Prices are out of control. I went to a donut shop the other day, yesterday, and they were charging $16 for a half a dozen donuts. I was like, you're out of your mind. There's no way I'm paying $16 for 6 donuts. That's craziness. These companies, this inflation, you know it's all manufactured. Once they start saying inflation in the news, then companies are just lifting their prices, you know. Gas companies, oil companies, everybody's just like, I'm just going to put a little bit more on there and say it's inflation. It's a crying shame.
They're a pivotal group of voters changing the political map, the race to connect with Latinos in our series, Power of the Vote. Back now with our series, The Power of the Vote, and tonight the battle over the all-important Latino vote. As the political landscape rapidly changes, Tom Llamas takes us to South Florida, where some long-standing expectations...
Why do they always go to Florida for the Latino vote? Why do they always do that? You know, the United States isn't just Florida, okay? Yes, Cubans in Florida are Republicans. We get it. But if you come to the Latino vote on the Southwest, the Latino vote is Democrat, okay? So stop worrying about Florida so much. Florida doesn't even... I don't know why they always do this.
About Latino voters are being put to the test in the midterms.
In a state known for hurricanes, in 2020, a political earthquake hit Florida.
This Latino thing is an issue here for the Democrats.
Joe Biden won the presidency, but Donald Trump took nearly half of the Latino vote in Florida.
Republicans figured out how to connect with Latino voters culturally. This is not about policy. This is about people's view of the country.
A new NBC News Telemundo poll shows while Latinos lean Democrat and prefer Democratic control of Congress, support for the GOP is up 10 points over 5 midterm cycles. It's why some are calling the Latino voter the sleeping giant.
One of the tightest races in the country is happening in this Florida congressional district that includes parts of Little Havana. More than 70% of the voters here are Hispanic, and this election has 2 Latinas going head-to-head.
Congresswoman Maria Elvira Salazar, a daughter of Cuban exiles and former news anchor, flipped this district red in 2020.
The GOP has made so many gains when it comes to Latinos. Why do you think it's happened?
Well, because we're not stupid, and we want the same thing as other Americans. Security, good jobs, good economy.
Her opponent, State Senator Annette Tadeo, grew up in Colombia and fled after terrorists kidnapped her father.
Do you think Democrats take Latino voters for granted?
Sometimes, yes, absolutely. As elections get closer, a bunch of money comes in at the last minute. I would like to see us all the time.
Part of the answer? Recognizing there's a diverse mix of Latino voters, many who fled socialist regimes.
What are the issues that are on the minds of voters right now in this district?
Inflation, gas prices, good jobs. Number one is like, la cosa está muy mala. Things are really bad.
Democrats are also hoping anger over abortion rights drives voters to the polls.
We all come from places where the government tries to tell you what to do. And the last thing we want is the government or politicians making decisions that are so difficult and private.
And Tadeo is critical of her opponent for not speaking out about Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' decision to transport Venezuelan refugees to Martha's Vineyard.
Do you think Governor DeSantis treated those refugees with dignity?
I think Governor DeSantis, just like any other governor, they're desperate, and they're
She's kind of bitchy, right? I like the other woman. The other woman's so nice, and this woman's just,
the choices on the table are very small.
You think it was okay to ship refugee families to Martha's Vineyard where 50 people had one bathroom in a church and they were not prepared for them?
I am not okay with what's happening at the border, period.
A passionate fight for the Latino vote, which
she's a corny Republican,
could mean winning beyond this year's midterms. Tom Llamas, NBC News, Miami.
Up next, it's being embraced by some of the biggest stars in sports, how pickleball is going from a pickup game to pro.
Pickleball.
Fact. Kettlebell workouts are the best weight loss workouts for men over 40. Research proves it.
And finally, what do Tom Brady and LeBron James have in common besides being sports legends? Like a growing number of Americans, they're obsessed with pickleball. Emily Aketa explains.
The ball has to bounce. 23-year-old Anna Bright is a product of pickleball's pandemic boom, picking up the game just a year ago. Now she's dominating the sport as a professional pickleballer.
Probably netted between $100,000 and $125,000 since late February.
So you've made six figures within less than a year of playing pickleball.
Yeah.
Once viewed as a pastime for the older athletes among us, pickleball, with its noisy pops of plastic, is somewhere between tennis and ping pong, and proving it has no bounds. This is Major League Pickleball, complete with color commentary.
Tadio's flashing it all right now.
Today, the first of a three-day tournament in Columbus, Ohio. 12 teams, 48 players. The top prize, $100,000. Pickleball is considered the fastest growing sport in the U.S., with nearly 5 million players picking up a paddle last year.
There will be 40 million people playing pickleball by 2030.
And some of the biggest names in sports are paying attention.
All right, pickleball.
Tom Brady, LeBron James, and Kim Clijsters are among the growing list of superstar pro athletes buying up professional pickleball teams. What makes pickleball appealing as an investor?
The growth margin. I think it's really cool to see that there is still so much potential. The reason why I did MLP is because it's equal pay. Men and women are starting on an equal playing field.
Major League money is following the fans as professional pickleball takes its swing. Emily Aketa, NBC News, Columbus, Ohio.
I don't know if I'm gonna have to do some research on pickleball. It just looks like tennis, but you know, tennis and ping pong mixed together. I don't know. I'm gonna have to learn the rules, see how it is. Looks weird.
Sounds like it's time to get in the game. That's Nightly News. Thank you for watching, everyone. I'm Lester Holt. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night.
Always love Lester Holt, man, bringing me the news. It's your boy Samson Biggz. Yeah, a lot of different things in the news, and it's a trip, and we'll be back with more videos shortly. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let me know your thoughts on the different news of the day. All right.